migrants at the Lincoln Correctional Facility that is in Harlem. They're inching closer to Rikers, John.
That's the correctional facility, the jail that was near Central Park on 10th Street?
Exactly. This is in Harlem. It's a 10,000 square foot building facing the north side of Central Park, and they are planning on housing migrants there. And officials are saying more than 70,000 migrants have arrived to New York City.
10,000 square feet?
10,000 square
That
feet.
doesn't sound like very big.
No, but at least it's something.
How many floors?
I'm not sure right here, but it says 10,000 square feet.
It doesn't sound right.
But you know
That's what they're saying.
The problem is we're going to be putting migrants all around in different places. I mean, John's idea of bringing them to Rikers made sense. Put them all in one location. We can test them. We can interview them. But we can interview them. We can test them. We could find out where they're from, what their backgrounds are, whether they're terrorists.
It's like Ellis Island all over again.
Was talking to us yesterday that a lot of these people are coming in with tuberculosis.
Yeah. Yes.
And last year we had 8,000 new cases of tuberculosis. Wow. And for all of those out there that don't know, tuberculosis is not curable. They can use antibiotics on it. But it's not curable. Now, do we want kids sitting next to in classrooms next to our kids?
Yeah, spreading like wildfire. The other thing Mia Lowe's talked about, John, was the list of all the things that when you came through Ellis Island, this is what you were tested for in the past. Now, none of them are getting tested for a lot of things, including TB. Wow.
Well, I understand. We have John Solomon calling in.
Yep, and we got some
good questions to ask him.
Yeah.
Let's get John Solomon on.
Breaking news, WABC.
And joining us now with some big breaking news is John Solomon of Just the News. John, what is the latest, especially with this FBI document that James Comer's looking for?
Well, it's pretty clear now that House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and James Comer are ready and prepared and moving towards finding FBI Director Chris Wray in contempt of Congress should he fail to produce this document that's been subpoenaed. Now, there's been several developments starting late Thursday through the weekend that have made this even more tantalizing, more interesting. When we first heard about this document, it appeared that it was a confidential human source informant that brought allegations of a pay-to-play bribery scheme involving President Joe Biden when he was vice president. The allegation is Joe Biden took actions as vice president to affect U.S. policy to benefit the companies and people who are paying his family money overseas. Now we're being told that the FBI has made some comments that there may be multiple informant documents that match that description. They need to be more specific, meaning that maybe multiple informants came in 2020 making allegations like that. That would be a major development, one of the things that needs to be ironed out. Now, Comer is going to meet with Chris Wray tomorrow morning. And the outcome of that call will determine whether they move right to contempt or whether there's a deal to be made. The FBI director clearly taking this serious enough to actually meet with the committee chairman. He also talked with Kevin McCarthy and promised his cooperation over a week ago. Obviously, that didn't happen. So now they're down to the wire. And my understanding is James Comer is already preparing contempt proceedings just in case tomorrow's meeting doesn't go well.
So what's in this document?
What is the? I want to hear first. What is the excuse that the FBI can come up with that they're not giving the document?
Well, it's the same excuse we hear all the time, which is these are confidential human sources. They won't come forward if we start making their allegations public. Well, listen, you can protect their name and their identity and still do it. The FBI and the Intelligence Committee had no problem making the whistleblower's complaint about Ukraine public and many other such allegations over the years. The world didn't come to an end. The FBI didn't stop functioning. But when they don't want to bring it up, they use that as the blanket excuse. Here's the big question. Here's what in talking to FBI people on the inside, what they believe Wray and the FBI is worried about. We already have a lot of evidence of a dual justice system, right? The FBI opens up on Donald Trump and Russia collusion without evidence, and they turn down not one, not two, not three, but four leads involving Hillary Clinton in 2016, even though some of those leads had real evidence attached to them. Well, the concern that the FBI people I'm talking to believe is underlying Chris Wray's not wanting to turn this over is there's no evidence the FBI followed these confidential human source leads and investigated Joe Biden before the 2020 election, which would be a glaring glaring, a new piece of evidence of the dual system of justice, the two-tiered system of justice that so many Americans now are deeply concerned about. They can see it with their own eyes. This would add to that body of concern.
Yeah, wow. So also explain, John Solomon, what exactly this document, because the whistleblower was saying it was like a $5 million alleged bribery scheme tying the president. That would be an enormous deal.
No, well, is it the president or the vice president at the time?
Well, he was vice president at the time, but the current president,
yeah,
right?
But let's keep it straight.
Yeah, just want to make sure it's not Hunter.
He was vice president at the time.
Right, but not Hunter is what I'm saying. Yes. I mean, there's Hunter leads to it, but it focuses on, quote, the big guy, which is why it's a big deal.
Yeah, the allegation is that while he was running for president in 2020, a confidential human source came in the spring and summer of 2020, and alleged they had information, specific and detailed information, that the FBI deemed credible enough to file this form, this confidential human source form, that alleged that back when Joe Biden was vice president under Barack Obama, that there was $5 million that changed hands or was supposed to change hands to the president's family and overseas money, and that Joe Biden would take certain actions on U.S. policy that would benefit the payer of that information, the company that was hiring the Biden family. We don't know much more than that. Multiple officials have confirmed to me that the country involved is Ukraine. That's interesting, given all the history of Burisma and that. But we don't know much more than that. The knowing, one, what the allegation is, and two, did the FBI investigate it like they investigate so many other things, or did it get put into a circular file and never pursued? That is a question that I think most of the people I'm talking to believe there's pretty strong evidence the FBI did not really pursue this in an aggressive way, very different from the way they pursued so many of the Trump allegations.
And so, in other words, the FBI is not saying that the Justice Department told them not to do it.
Yeah, that's right. That the FBI on their own made that decision. Now, again, we may need to dig in and find out. Maybe there was some Justice Department interference on this. I talked to several people that were in the Justice Department in 2020. This did not ring a bell to them. And so it's very possible that the FBI kept this to themselves. But those are the sort of questions Comer just wants to get to the bottom of. And at the end of the day, beyond exposing possible wrongdoing, it's clear now that these foreign conflicts of interest, where a foreign country can go and hire the relative of a high-ranking government official, and there's really no ethics rules prohibiting it, Congress clearly wants to change the law to prevent these sort of things from happening in the future, so that a future vice president can't be running a cash machine overseas while they oversee U.S. policy dependent on those, or benefiting or impacting those who are paying their family. So there's a long-term good governance goal here and a short-term goal of trying to find out what else we don't know about the Biden family overseas funding machine.
John Solomon, John Katzmatidis, I just don't understand one thing. It's on a million people have seen the videotape of Vice President Biden at the time threatening not to give the Ukrainians $1 billion if they didn't fire the person, the Attorney General of Ukraine that was chasing his son. And he says, I got 6 hours before I go on the airplane. If you don't fire him in the next 6 hours, you lose $1 billion. I mean, I just don't understand how nobody says a word about it.
And can you imagine if the last name was Trump?
No, forget about Trump. I mean, what can it be, John?
Listen, the evidence has been overwhelming for a long time. And one of the things that I'm working on, I hope to make public in the next few weeks, are documents that I've obtained from the State Department through FOIA, through sources, through officials, that go through and show that some of the testimonies given at Donald Trump's impeachment trial, the first impeachment trial involving Ukraine, weren't accurate. They're in conflict with the actual facts. When people see how the story was manipulated during the impeachment trial, and then and they see what really was going on behind the scenes, they're going to be even more deeply troubled that what Joe Biden was doing in that pressure to fire the Ukrainian prosecutor looks a lot worse than it was made to be portrayed at the time. At the time, people said, oh, parents have a conflict of interest, but nothing really serious went wrong, and Joe Biden was just carrying out State Department policy. I think we're going to find out State Department policy was actually different than what Joe Biden carried out, and that's going to add to the intrigue. I hope to make that public in the next few weeks.
And the American people, all they want is the truth. That's all they want. Rita?
Right.
You know what? You know what's amazing, John? Before we let you go, it is an amazing moment to think about that. Tomorrow they're meeting. Okay, James Comer is meeting with the FBI director. If indeed the FBI director and the FBI is found in contempt, how unbelievably historic. I mean, talk about that moment. That's a stunner.
It is. The last time we had something similar was back in, I believe, 2013 when the Attorney General, Eric Holder, was found in contempt. Of course, the Justice Department took no action against him because he was in charge of the Justice Department. There is an interesting concept here, which is even if the Justice Department chooses not to pursue contempt charges against him, Congress can pursue them themselves. There are mechanisms that haven't been exercised in decades, if not centuries. But I think some lawmakers are researching action that Congress as an independent branch of government could take. I think the other thing that they can do, they can withhold all of the FBI's funding until they get what they want from the FBI director. That will get any FBI director's attention.
John Solomon, last question. If the FBI refuses to turn it over to Congress, and Congress finds him in contempt, and Congress wants to have him arrested, or what? Who arrests the FBI?
That's a great question.
These are questions that are actually being researched right now. It's funny you ask these questions. They're very good questions. There are people in Congress and some of these committees actually looking at some history. I think there have been earlier apprehensions that Congress did on its own without the executive branch. I think people are researching that. I haven't been able to find the details myself yet, but I'm working on it.
It's crazy. And so at last, before we got 30 seconds left, is my advice to the FBI, if anybody was listening to me, say, just come clean. The American people just want to know the truth and let the pebbles fall as they may, and that's it. And, let's go forward. Let's not look backwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is a great point. And I think that transparency is it. With too often Americans now see the government officials believe it's their information, not the people's information. Of course, it's people's information. That's what our founding fathers determined when they created this great republic.
And someday we'll find out who really killed Kennedy.
That's right. Bobby Kennedy has a good idea.
If we find out, John will find it. John, thank you. We love you.
Thank you so much, John Solomon.
Guys.
We love you too. Take care.
Good to be with you. Take care. Have a good day.
Wow, Rita, I mean, that was a great interview. I mean, the FBI, if they have the information, they should just come clean.
Yeah, that's what
I
the
don't
public
understand.
wants.
If Congress is asking them, who are they to deny Congress?
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved your question there, John, that we just asked John Solomon. Who's going to arrest the FBI director?
Well,
Holder,
Attorney General Holder was held in contempt.
Yes.
And since he's the head of the Justice Department, nothing was done. This is way back when.
Wow. By the way,
crazy.
I have some updates, you guys, too.
I'll give us an update. I understand Dr. Michalos called in.
He did. Our resident genius. He said it's not the other strains of TB, the ones that have been around. This is on the migrants. That these are the new strains of TB that are so infectious and deadly. And that there really isn't a vaccine or anything for, which is really scary. The other update, too, by the way, on the migrants, it is an 8-story building.
Vito Fasella called in on that.
Vito Fasella called on that. It's an 8-story building, by the way. This is where they are going to be housed in the Lincoln Correctional Facility, 10,000 square foot a floor, 8 stories. And that's 110th Street. By the way, also some new developments. This is a busy day. CUNY coming out and condemning that speech. Finally, after 2 weeks, the brass saying that this should not be tolerated. They must have been. And we're going to talk about it with Bob Holden later on.
Let's take a break. And after the break, we're going to come back with Charlie Gasparino. Where the heck are we with the budget?